Okay. Good evening and welcome to the South County Fire Board of Commissioners regular board meeting for September 17, 2024. We'll go ahead and call us to order and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Commissioners, board members, you have the agenda in front of you. And I think Chief Maxwell was planning on taking the Linwood presentation before the budget in 9A. Is that okay? Because we have everybody here from Linwood for that, but we'll leave the agenda as is, but that's my plan. Is there anything else for the agenda? Anything else for the agenda? If not, I'll move the adoption of the agenda. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Teofilak. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? If not, we will move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, that takes us forward then in the agenda to the consent agenda, which has the claims vouchers in 4A. The first set totaling $2,007,743.67, and the second set $1,927,254.76. I will move the adoption of the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Chan. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. Is there discussion on the consent agenda items? Discussion on the consent agenda items. Seeing no request for discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. That takes us then forward in the agenda. Item number 5, which is approval of the meeting minutes. And in 5A, we have meeting minutes for September 3, 2024 regular meeting. I will move the adoption of the September 3, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Lawrence. It's been moved and seconded to adopt those September 3, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. That moves us forward in the agenda to public comment. And we'll start first in the room. Is there any request for public comments? And I see Commissioner Roy Waugh from Surfer is here. And Commissioner Waugh, why don't you work? What do we want to do public comment? Do we want to do a microphone so it can be seen on? Well, no, but so that we can be seen, it can be heard and recorded. Yeah, if you don't mind coming forward to the chair, that way we've got the microphones better.
Thank you. My name is Roy Waugh. I'm here tonight to represent the Snohomish Fire Commissioners Association as a representative on the EMS County Task Force. The task force has worked diligently for well over a year in trying to bring together some semblance of organization and professionalism to the EMS here in Snohomish County. We all know there has been some challenges. At the September meeting, I made a presentation that I was informed I was over time by about 30 minutes. Steve Fox sometimes comments things like that. And I don't think all the commissioners from South Fire were able to attend that. But I'm basically here to answer any questions that people might have about the task force and what we're doing. I think the chiefs pretty much agree on all the facets. During their July meeting, they approved what we were doing with a thumbs up. Since that time, there has been some, we might say, backdoor negotiations in regards to the budgets. So there basically are 3 different budgets out there related to what the task force has approved. We've approved all 3 of those budgets at one time or another. But I think that there were, as it progressed forward, some chiefs did not find that they would be able to pass a $1 million budget before their boards. I don't think that's fair to commissioners. You didn't see the budgets. How could you say that you wouldn't pass them? So moving forward, I would ask if there's any questions on any of those budgets. I'm here. I can find the information if I don't have it in my brain. It's been discussed. It's been hashed around. My hat's off to the task force, Sean Maxwell, Joe Hughes. My golly, we couldn't do EMS in this county without these two guys. They're absolutely amazing. So I am here to answer any of your questions. I'm not here to input personal information, only the facts. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Wah. Is there any other request for public comment in the room? Then we'll go on to the Zoom platform. Any other request in the room? Not seeing any other request for public comment in the room. Let me turn it over to Ms. Blankenship and find out, do we have any request for public comment on the Zoom platform?
We do not.
Not hearing any request for public comment on the Zoom platform. I'll come back to the room. Any other last requests for public comment in the room? Not seeing any requests for public comment. Thank you. We will move forward in the agenda then to item number 7, which is the fire chief's report. And we have Chief Maxwell here tonight, and then we have Chief Eastman online. And I didn't know who, Chief Maxwell, are you going to give the report or Chief Eastman?
Yes, I'm seeing a nod from the chief, so
Okay,
yes.
well, good evening. Good evening to you both.
Thank you.
To all of you, I should
Thank
say.
you. So, yeah, you can go ahead and progress to the next slide there, please. So we had a 2-alarm apartment fire in Edmonds. I believe it was this Saturday, and you can see on there, 60 firefighters responded. It got up into the attic. You can see a lot of roof work there. We had 2 people we took to the hospital. We're sure it was a large media event, and none of the firefighters were injured, and we're doing some thorough reviews as we do with large incidents, and we just wanted to report that to the board.
What was the cost of that? That's the one right really close to 17, right?
It was closer to Station 20.
It's close to, okay, there's one, okay.
Yeah,
20, okay.
yeah. I don't think we have any comment on origin of this.
Yeah, it's still under investigation right now, so I don't want to make any public comment on that.
Okay.
Okay, next slide, please. And then we have a emergency preparedness expo coming up Saturday, the 21st, from 11 to 2 at Scriber Lake. And we would be interested in any of your participation in that event. And then we'll move on to the next slide, please. And then just a reminder that we're doing a retirement ceremony at Glacier Peak, September 28th, and we would really appreciate the board members joining us if at all possible for that event while we recognize people and promotions. And I believe that, just check one more slide, but I believe that is the end of our chief's report. And Chief Eastman, would you like to?
Yeah, Commissioner Kenny, I got one more item if that's
Sure,
okay.
yeah, absolutely.
We've talked about this in the past. The city of Mukilteo had a interlocal agreement style of annexation. If you remember, we talked about it. I want to say could have been up to 6 months ago. It was 84 acres around the McDonald's there on the Speedway. And it's a new way of doing annexations. It's a ILA method. It would be an interlocal agreement between the city of Mukilteo and Snohomish County. And I think they've come to an understanding. I have a meeting with them on Thursday, around 1 o'clock. And I think I want to make sure I'm bringing the message forward from the board. In the conversation we had, I think my recollection of where we stand on the annexation issues is we're going to look at each individual annexation independently, and discuss them and take them, on the merits of each one of the annexations, regardless of the style. And if you remember, there's 3, there's the ILA method, there's a petition method, and there's a voter method. And specifically to the Mukilteo annexation, I didn't see and I don't recall, that the city or that the board, wanted to stand in the way, of the ILA annexation that has been worked out between the city of Mukilteo and Snohomish County. If you recall, as a junior taxing district that currently provides fire service to that area, we have to agree with this method for the ILA method to be used. If we disagree, then they can't use the ILA method and they need to go do one of the other two, whether it's petition or vote. And so as I have a meeting with them, I want to make sure that my understanding of where we left it the last time we talked about it is still where the board is at. And then I'll go continue the conversation with the city of Mukilteo. And so with that, I'll pause, Commissioner Kenny.
Objections to the chief's plan, Commissioner Teofler.
My desire has always been for the voters to decide. So that's where I stand.
Other comments, thoughts? Objections? Commissioner Wittes? Oh, no, right.
I looked at it and I can't remember exactly the conversation we had about it, but what I was bringing forward, there wasn't that much of an annexation. It wasn't that big an area. And is this the time that we continue to try and work with Mukilteo and go through the ILA process? And that's what I recall. And I don't remember really what the direction was after that, if there was any.
Yeah,
Commissioner Chan?
yeah, I think when we met with the mayor in the government committee, and then I think it is towards a very goodwill, so to speak. So to go in there, I think, Bob, didn't you say you reach out to the people over there?
We have not. We talked about it and we didn't. And we've been kind of waiting to meet with the city of Mukilteo, and we've had some email correspondence with them, and then this one popped up a week and a half ago. So we have not talked to the individuals out there. There's not that many residential properties. It's mostly commercial.
But it won't take that long to reach out to them, right?
Yeah,
So- Yeah. So I agree with Commissioner Geofrac, at least, trying to reach out to them, and so they're aware of it and they want to speak, whatever they want input, we can welcome to the Win Cup. I hate to do it without they being notified.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Yeah, is this a meeting where a decision is going to be made?
I got a feeling they're going to ask if we're going to oppose the ILA. And I think, and I know Commissioner Wittes and Commissioner Chan were in the initial meeting we had with the mayor and his staff on the topic. I have not given the city of Mukilteo an indication either way. I guess I was under the, and that's why I'm bringing it back up to the board, because I got the feeling afterwards that the majority of the board we're not going to want to fight this one as a result of it being small, our relationship with the city of Mukilteo and that, and to not stand in its way. And that's kind of what I want to confirm. And if that's not the case, I just need to know kind of where the board sits so I can relay that message back to the city. And to be honest, I'm still not exactly sure what action we need to take to either say we're opposed to the ILA, because this, if you remember, this legislation is fairly new. And so we're still working through that process and working with the city on it. So,
Okay,
but I think they're going to want to know.
I'm starting to recollect the conversation that we had, and we did, I think we kind of agreed that, well, we'll canvass the neighborhood there and see how the property owners feel about it. So this was a while ago. So yeah, I think that's So I would appreciate no commitment that you might want to mention to them that, well, we're going to check with the neighborhood, the people that live there or own property there. Thanks.
Well, I'll chime in and say that I think that we should not oppose the annexation. It includes the strip mall area between the Speedway and the airport that the Mukilteo has been trying to annex one way or another for a long, long time. I actually always thought that was part of Mukilteo. In fact, most of the area that they are planning to annex I always thought was part of Mukilteo. There was one spot kind of to the northeast that I was a little uncertain. I think they were crossing over a road, and it was kind of odd, but we heard that the county actually wanted them to take that. So it's a small annexation. I think it makes sense to not oppose it. I think it generates a little bit of goodwill. I know we lose a little bit of AV, but in the context of South County Fire as a whole, it's not that much. And I think there are not being obstructionist at every turn can pay some benefits with our friends and neighbors, where there might be bigger fish to fry, more opportunities, investments, shall we say, that could pay off to not sit and fight this one. They have done large annexations before, and I've gone to the mat and fought Mukilteo vigorously in the past, and I'm happy to do that again in the right circumstances, but I don't think these are the right circumstances. So I think we should not object on this one. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. Other questions, comments? Commissioner Rowland.
I think the question here is really coming down to the self-determination for the people that live in that area. I know it is a very small area. There aren't very many residential units, but at the end of the day, this method takes away their right to say whether they are okay with joining the city of Mukilteo, being subject to its taxes. And I think that alone gives me reason to pause on this. There's spirit of, camaraderie and goodwill towards the city, and I want nothing but the best for them. But in this case, I think it would be best that those citizens have a voice, whether that is we go through the neighborhood, we talk to them, or whether it is we just say, put it on the ballot if they're okay with the increases to their taxes, everything else involved with it, then it's fine with us. But at the end of the day, I think one of the things that we did look at besides that issue was where our service lines kind of overlap and which stations are closer in this area we'd be first to respond to these anyway. So we wouldn't be benefiting from any of the assessed value there, but we would probably be first on scene on most of the calls in that small area. So for those 2 reasons, I think it would be best that we at least get the citizens' input. I'm not opposed to the canvassing, but without that, I would not be comfortable saying yes.
Other questions, comments? Chief, do you have enough? Or uh-huh?
No, I guess what, let me say where I think we are is right now, I think we're at a spot where I get the lean towards no, and we'll canvass, and if the citizens say yes, then we'll agree, and if the citizen says no, we're not going to agree. Is that the consensus of did I hear the consensus correctly?
Yeah, I at least for me, I think we should respect the majority, what the citizens say, right? Otherwise, why even ask? So yeah, I agree with whatever they determine.
So Chair Candy, is that, I don't get to see everybody, so I don't know if everybody's shaking their head. Is that the general consensus?
I don't know if that's the general consensus, but I think that's what we have for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that's the case, that gives me enough to go into my meeting on Thursday. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Anything else, Commissioner Rowland.
I'd like to volunteer to help out with that canvassing if you need someone to do so.
Anything else for the chief's report? From the chiefs? No? Okay, let's flip back to the commissioners' questions from the board. Board members for the chiefs on the chief's report, the chiefs on the chief's report. Any questions? No? Okay, great, thank you. That takes us forward then to item number 8 on the agenda, which is the union report. And we have Vice President Pickens with us tonight on Zoom. Good evening.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. I'm coming to you tonight from Station 22. Looking forward to moving into a new station here in the next couple of years. I don't have much to report. We have had several members over the last week participating in the UDS and gallery cancer screenings that have been being held over at Snow 4. And so just wanted to reiterate our gratitude and appreciation for your guys' support of those programs. We've had a few members that have, members and members' families who have, due to these screenings, had early detection of some cancers and been able to be prompt in seeking treatment. So we really understand the importance of this program, and we know that you guys understand it as well, and appreciate your guys' support. Other than that, I do not have anything to report. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Vice President Pickens. Any questions for him from the fire commissioner or from the board members? Sorry, from the board members. No questions. Great. Thank you for being here tonight. Okay, let's move forward in the agenda then to item 9, but we're actually going to take, without objection, we'll take the Linwood presentation first, which is technically 10A, and it's fire prevention in the city of Linwood, future growth. We'll start off with Chief Anderson, I think, to introduce our guest speakers tonight.
Yeah, good evening,
And,
commissioners. So,
good evening.
thank you. And I'm going to introduce we have a Robert Mathias right here on this side, Development and Business Service Deputy Director and Building Official. And then we have the Director of Business Service or Development and Business Services, David Kleisch. And then Carl Almgren, Community Planning Manager. And then our own Deputy Fire Marshal and Fire Code Official for Linwood, Alex Janess. So tonight, they're going to give their presentation. I'm just going to turn it right over to Alex. Is that right to start this? Or, David, the Director, David Kleisch. There we go.
Thank you, Todd. I want to thank the South County Fire and the commissioners for inviting us tonight. I know that from the inception of the RFA, we've been in lockstep together as we serve South County. I think both unincorporated and City of Linwood benefited from that, and I think that shows in the interest over the last year or so regarding others that seek to join the authority. With that, of course, comes change and new challenges. We are all seeing the growth that's occurring in county, and we're seeing that in Linwood as well. That has brought us to the table to discuss the future. We've had very good conversations with South County Fire staff. I want to thank them for their collaboration and engagement in a really mutual discussion of how we move forward together. So how do we move forward with growth? I will introduce Carl Algram now, who's the Community Planning Manager, and you'll see changes that are happening in the city of Linwood. I would like to say, however, that those changes are based on a plan that was started in the mid-90s called Legacy Linwood, which saw the future potential of South County, went forward with requesting and advocating for mixed-use development and high-capacity rail. And the city's been on this journey now for probably 30 years. And so this just didn't pop out of a hat. We've been at it for a while. And Carl will tell you about the current situation and what we see the future holding for us all. Carl.
Thank you, David. So just to give a good background of what is Development Business Services, it's a little bit of a unique place for business to occur, to be able to get your permits, and as well as it's also a place where we set policy. It's where we help design how are we going to achieve our growth standards and how are we going to achieve our community vision. Within the Development Business Services Department, we include permits and inspections, which is under Deputy Director Robert Mathias, which includes the building department, our permit center, our private engineering group, as well as our fire prevention and code enforcement. It's a lot of the field staff making sure that things are underway in Linwood are occurring per code. Our economic development team is a division that helps support the intermediate. We have a policy of what we want to achieve. How do we get there? They are our implementation tool. They also support tourism throughout Linwood. We have an administration division that helps support us through our budgeting, our contracts, as well as our business licensing. And then under community planning, which is the group I manage, we not only do comprehensive planning, which focuses on how are we going to achieve our planned growth for the next 20 years, but we also help set up policy of how are we going to meet our community's vision as to what Linwood is to become. And with this, we also do permitting to make sure the permits that are coming in meet that policy. Next slide. So where is Linwood going? Over the next 20 years, we have a planned population growth up to approximately 64,000. That is above our baseline population of nearly 40,000. That is to occur within our current city boundaries. Within that includes a increase total number of units of approximately 14,000 units to be added to our current unit count of about 16,000 units. But we don't only plan for how many people are going to be living in Linwood. We also plan to make sure that we have adequate zoning and regulations to help support an employment market. So we are also planning to help support an additional 22,000 jobs to be coming to Linwood. This is all growth targets that are based out of the Growth Management Act that have been worked with our Snohomish County partners and divvied out across the other jurisdictions as well. So this is our 20-year planning of how are we going to get there and over the next 20 years. Go to the next slide. One of our main focuses for how are we going to grow is to leverage the public investment of light rail and grow around where we are building transit. We have a designated area called a regional growth center. It's designated by the Puget Sound Regional Council that holds a significant value of saying this percentage of growth is going to occur in this location. So that includes the Alderwood Mall area as well as the area we call City Center. We have underway right now what's called a City Center Alderwood sub-area plan. As Director Kleitch mentioned, a lot of early planning work in the 90s occurred that continued on into the 2000s to generate the City Center plan, which is starting to really come out of the ground now. What we're doing currently is extending that planning effort to be more specific and more direct into the Alderwood area. In City Center, right now we have planned for a total development of 12.3 million square feet. That would include a population in that area in the orange outline of 10,800. That would be under 6,000 dwelling units with approximately 5,000 planned for employment. As it may not seem right now, but as we are planning for the future, the Linwood City Center is in a very unique location to be able to leverage future office locations as new tenants are looking for locations outside of the core of Seattle and Bellevue. We're seeing that change beginning to happen. It's a resurgence. It was happening right before COVID. Unfortunately, we think COVID's put a little bit of a pause, but if you saw the news just recently, Amazon has made a significant stance to bring their workers back in the office. So we see that as a major piece. And I do want to highlight, just a couple of weeks ago, we opened Linwood Link Extension, and that train station is running and up and moving. So a lot of the things that we have planned are starting to really come out of the ground. Nothing comes fast, but it comes as planned. We'll go to the next slide. So a little bit about Linwood Link Extension. It is planned to be the busiest station as part of the extension with an estimated 18,000 daily boardings. That number is based on when what is called the 2 line opens, and that's the service to Bellevue. So if you take the station right now, it goes up and down a north-south pathway from Angle Lake to the Linwood City Center station. When the 2 line connects to Bellevue, it will allow you to not only take one train, but you'll be able to have an option of which way do I want to go? Do I want to connect to the east side or do I want to continue further south? The big benefit with that means you're not waiting for a train nearly as long. So right now the trains you're waiting anywhere from 8 to 10 minutes. When the two line opens, it's expected to be anywhere from 4 to 6 minutes during peak. So that type of transit draws people to be able to live near a place. As we think about a 20-year horizon, though, Linwood City Center Station is going to be the terminus until 2037. We're planning to 2044 when Everett Link extends through into the West Alderwood area. So as much as it seems like it takes a long time for these things to come to fruition, and it has, the voters have waited for it since 2008, the next station opening and the next extension that we're expecting is in our horizon. We are already laying the groundwork right now of where are we going to anticipate development? Where do we need to see new streets? What type of impacts will we have to the interurban trail, and how do we overcome those during construction? Go to the next slide. So we do have quite a few different major projects occurring. This slide includes some of the public investments going on. I want to highlight the city's investment in the Community Justice and the Community Resource Center, which is a project that is nearly complete. If you ever had a chance to tour the former police station for Linwood, I gravely apologize. It was woefully inadequate for the police force. They are now able to have a facility that supports their duties, as well as actually have a locker room available to them. So the standards went up by just a little bit. It's a bad joke, but one of the other projects I want to highlight is the Poplar Way Bridge. This is kind of a fun project because it is connecting 33rd Avenue West to Poplar Way. We received a $20 million grant from the federal government through the RAISE program that helps support that. What that allows you to do is if you are at the Lowe's on 196, you'll be able to go straight across I-5 right there and get over to Red Robin. I know that those linkages seem odd, but if you look at where those streets are, they're immediately lined up. So by being able to provide that connection, that allows a larger grid in this area to form and provides drivers and vehicles more ability to choose how are they going to get to and from, and disperses traffic. We are currently underway of securing some of the last points in design to address some tire dust issues and new legislation regarding that. And we're hoping to be under construction very shortly. Go to the next slide. Some of the private investments, these are the big buildings that we all have seen come up out of the ground. I'll highlight some of these a little bit more, but we've seen a significant amount of new investment come into this area, partly because of Edmond School District surplusing land, including the old Linwood High School location, as well as their former bus barn site. Those large sites became very strong catalysts for new projects. We've also seen several other projects in the city center, which I'll dive into now, if you want to go to the next slide. So Northline Village is a 18-acre site. It is the former Sports Authority. It is where Wild Wasabi is between 196 and 44th. If you've been there recently, you'll see that it's a big parking lot with some torn down buildings. We have a contract with the landowner to develop approximately 1,400 residential units, 2 different parks, a grid street format, and really bring in a strong sense of place immediately adjacent to the station itself. This project is phased, and because of its large commitment to infrastructure costs early in the project, it does take a little bit more time to come up out of the ground. If you think about Totem Lake in Kirkland, that was a site that went through several cycles before it developed, but it did go through and resembles many of the characteristics we anticipate seeing at Northline Village. Yes, Commissioner.
Question. The new units that you plan and the population to go up, are all those people are going to be allowed to have cars?
That's a great question. So in city center, we do have very low parking standards. What we have seen is developers are not fully willing to go to our lowest standard, but they are recognizing that not all the people who want to live in a place like this want to necessarily have to rely on the car. So they're identifying that the location near the Linwood Link extension, as well as the other transit service immediately available there, provides the connectivity they're seeking. And so anecdotally, as we've talked to some of our new residents, some of them used to own a house, have sold the house, have sold one of their cars, and have gone from a 2-car household to a 1-car household. So those are the type of changes we're anticipating.
Okay, thank you.
Go to the next slide. One of the projects that just recently completed is the Ember Apartments. And this is a more unique project, and I'm very thankful to the fire prevention team at Linwood because it did take a new approach to how are we going to provide fire safety and fire prevention to this location. And because of that, we were able to really make a very strong place of development and a location that was really unique. And as you can see in the bottom right picture, you can see some of those unique trends where an interior courtyard at grade level provides a significant amount of open space, as well as a rooftop garden area on top of the parking garage, all provides this iconic location for this development. This is located at 198th and 44th Avenue West, or 40th Avenue West, near the Goodwill site. It just opened in its first building, and second building just recently opened about 2 weeks ago. Because of all these unique things that were added to this project, its location near the station, as well as its overall design and income restricted units allowed in the site, it was awarded a on the ground award by Puget Sound Regional Council for a Vision 2050 award, recognizing the new development that's coming to this area. On the next slide. Under construction right now, and if you've driven down Alderwood Mall Boulevard and that lane closure, that is for this project. This is the Co's on Alderwood Mall Boulevard. It's 199 units. And it's marketed as workforce housing. And what does that mean? It's really marketed for smaller units and those who really want to be able to live near transit and not rely on the vehicle, but they may not be able to support living a little bit further away or potentially affording the rents at the Ember Apartments. These tend to be smaller units, anywhere from 300 to 500 square feet, and is anticipated to be completed in early 2025. The site of this is the former Buca de Beppo's in Linwood. Go to the next slide.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
We say 20% income restricted. What does that mean?
So as part of a tax exemption program, through a limited duration, if they provide a certain number of the units to be income restricted to a lower average income, they're able to gain a tax exemption.
So 20% of the occupancy will be
Yeah.
low income.
Exactly. So I think they have the 40 units dedicated for either 80% or less AMI or area median income.
So I can afford it. Thank you.
Yes. A site that just broke ground across the street from the Ember project, right next to the Linwood Goodwill, is the Enzo project. This is 318 units. The thing that I'm very excited about with this project is between this project and the Ember project, it starts to bookend what we call the Linwood Promenade. And this is considered a future Main Street down 198th. So at one side of City Center, you'll have Northline Village. At the other side, Ember and Enzo will be able to be at this location with ground floor retail sites. Joe, go to the next slide. Breaking up that distance between 44th and 40th is a new street that we're currently in design for. It's called 42nd Avenue West. If you've ever had the opportunity to walk in an urban area that has very large blocks and is very auto dominant, it's not conducive to wanting to be there. One of the best ways to provide that is to break up the blocks, provide more opportunities, not only to park on the street, but more opportunities to connect to different properties. So this street is going to act as a secondary main street for Linwood. It's going to have some on-street parking, quite a bit of pedestrian amenities, and provide a new north-south connection from Alderwood Mall Boulevard to 196 with a phase 2 plan to connect to 194th. Next slide. This project's, I think, one of the more interesting ones, not only because of its history in relationship to why it is the way it is, as it broke apart the Linwood community when I-5 was constructed and the 405, the HOV on-ramp was constructed, that really kind of took a lot of the daylight out of this location, but also the history that's on the wall just out here in the lobby where the tanker had spilled and there was the fire. It's a very interesting location, but as you can imagine, its immediate adjacency to the Linwood City Center station, and as you can see in the bottom right picture, it is not an area that you want to walk throughout majority of the year. That picture, I believe, was taken in an August a year ago after it rained. So even at high daylight, it is not a location you want to walk through, but these are some of the amenities we're focused on, not only with building new streets and building buildings, but allowing people to be able to move about the community by a mode choice of their options. If you go to the next slide. And one of the future efforts that's going on in Linwood right now is also the Public Facilities District, also called the District. Similar to Northline Village, where they have a master plan of how that 18 acres is going to develop, the Linwood Public Facilities District is planning to develop their 13-acre site, which formerly used to include the Chuck E. Cheese. It has the Olympus Spa at the site, the event center, and really start highlighting how do you start maximizing this location for the community, not only as a place of tourism and activity, but a place for housing and business and a place to gather. So we're excited to continue to work with the district. So one of the reasons why I really focused on the Regional Growth Center in this area of Linwood, it's not that we don't have other projects occurring elsewhere in the city. It's that our growth strategy and our focus is how do we continue to support this area to be a place of employment and a place of population support and housing. So I think that's all my slides. I'm always available for questions via email, but with that, I'd like to turn it back to Director Peitsch.
Thank you, Carl. So as Carl ended his presentation, again, we are focused on the core area of Linwood that we've been focused on for many years, high-capacity transit, mixed-use development. A couple of things I'd like to add. Current market conditions pretty much cap out growth at 85 feet. So that means that you're seeing a lot what is called stick-built over podium. That's the development type that is prevalent given the cost of construction and the rents that are charged. So we're kind of at that 5 to 7 story height in the city of Linwood. We do not expect that to radically change in the near future, but we do expect it to change in time. What does that mean? The Regional Growth Center is zoned to go up to higher densities, in some areas up to 30 feet. And that is a function of rents. That's a function of cost. So while we're about 5, 6, 7 stories now, long-term, expect that to be an increase in those heights and those densities. And that's where our development is focused. But the citywide is pretty much going to stay as it is. A couple of things, though. One is there's a few growth areas around there, the College District, Edmonds College. They're expanding on a regular basis. They have a new facility planned out there. So that's an area that becomes a little bit more intense. You have Highway 99. We haven't advanced a policy on 99, but there's potential for residential development along 99, like in Shoreline. But 99 also is a very strong corridor for commercial, particularly auto. That type of activity we see will continue. And then citywide, there's a state law called 1110, at least that's its number, for middle housing. So we see infill of housing around the residential neighborhoods of Linwood. But Linwood's strategy since the 90s has been to protect those neighborhoods. And so where you may see a little bit more density in there, like short plats, ADUs, attached dwelling units, maybe townhomes and the like, you're not going to see the level of development that you saw in the city center and the regional growth center. So that we feel will be, manageable. And with that, that's an overview of Linwood. We stand for any questions.
Questions from the board members? Commissioner Furna.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the presentation. Very good. What I've seen in the city of Seattle was they would take a standard sized lot, divide it, put a 2 or 3-story building in your backyard and still have the original 1942-ish war box that was in the front yard. Is there any intention of doing that within your planning?
Sort of. I say sort of because the history of Seattle includes majority of those lots are approximately 5,000 square feet. Linwood's history has the lots of approximately 8,400 square feet. Why is that distinction very important is because the law David Kleitch referenced does require cities to allow either 2 units per lot or up to 4 units depending on their location near transit. So that is to provide a opportunity for more units to be added to existing lots without going through a potential subdivision process. We are currently going through those development regulations. We have a schedule to adopt those by May. One of the big things we're focused though with them is the design aspects of how do those new buildings fit within the community. And you referenced a very good point is that the history between the older house in the front and the newer house in the back have typically had a very break in the design characteristic. Linwood's history of primary split level entries and some post-World War II houses provide a much tighter time frame in architectural design to have a little bit more continuity to be considered. So those are a lot of design pieces we're considering. But to a large extent, the new bill will require Linwood to allow multiple units per lot through a variety of different housing forms.
Thank you.
Other questions, Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, you said 5 to 7, those are pretty limited to the city center, or it will be some other area will be growing too?
Those are in the city center and the area around the mall, so the entire regional growth center. We're seeing roughly those 5 to 7-story types of projects.
And you consider that mid-rise, low-rise, or what do you call them?
Well, that is I will let Carl feel that. I would say low mid-rise.
No mid-rise, okay.
I was going to say low plus. Really, when I think of a mid-rise building, and this is where we have breaks between the terminology of how is it being reviewed against the fire code versus how we consider it. An 18-story building for me is considered approximately mid-rise. In the city center specifically, we allow heights up to 330 feet or approximately 30 stories. That's where, in my mind, we would be definitely into the high-rise considerations.
Yeah.
But right now, the 5 to 7, some 8-story buildings are really kind of that low plus height.
Yeah, well, we have been always expressed my concern with my staff that, suddenly you got the elevator and all that, would take a long time. Are there more units will be senior citizens? I know there's a shed, and then there's one right across the street is a senior center. Are there any more senior type of housing there?
Yeah, so there's 2 newer senior housing developments in Linwood. One is what was developed by Shag, now called Destinations, off of 40th Avenue West. Another one is called The Reserve, which many of you may remember did have a fire incident a number of years ago. That's over by Scriber Lake. Those are the 2 newest senior apartment projects. We don't zone against senior housing. It is a developer-driven choice. So if another developer wants to come in and build senior housing, we would be supportive as long as it fits the form of what we're seeking for in city center and the city of Linwood.
Okay, on the parking on the convention center, are you going to build up the parking, that whole area?
Yeah, there is planned parking structured garages currently. Right now at the stage that they're at, they're really focused on laying a groundwork of what may be developed and kind of a total capacity of a site. And then as you move from a master planning to a site specific, that's where the investors and the architects really put pen to paper as exactly what the form is going to appear to be.
So
But-
that would be your entertainment, so to speak, restaurants and everything like that.
Yeah.
So it'll be crowd, okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, I appreciated the presentation. I learned a lot. Curious, I just after my question, they had the slides, so only 50% of the people can have a car. How does that work out and for the people renting their I mean, how do you, some people just aren't going to have a parking space.
Some people may not have a parking space. That's our minimum parking standard. We do allow developers to build more than that. And we've only had 2 projects come in for construction that have been built at less than 1 space per unit. And a lot of it comes down to who do they think they'll be able to market their site to and the lifestyle opportunities they're going to be able to offer. That is kind of the private market driven. We have a floor, half a space per unit, but we have seen a variety within that range, up to about a 1 1/3 spaces per unit.
Wow, okay, interesting. Yeah, so that was the minimum. So I live fairly close by Linwood, Martha Lake Elementary School. And so I try to take care of any business in Linwood before 10 a.m. It's hard if you want to go to Costco, but I don't particularly like waiting at stoplights for very long. So has Linwood factored in or been thinking about when we get to the self-driving cars, which may have hope for really reducing congestion and stuff? Has that been a factor for you to think about?
So we have looked at autonomous vehicles to a small extent. The biggest aspect with them is the consideration. Some people say, well, you'll never need to park the car because it'll go do its own thing. And some people have the belief that it will resolve all traffic collisions. I think the reality is certain things of that technology may be slow adoptions, and we'll be able to make more responsives to that. The environment of what we're trying to build in around the Linwood Regional Growth Center, Alderwood, and the city center is less reliance on a car altogether, so that if you're able to live there, you're able to meet your daily needs by either walking or biking or by a short transit ride. I do want to highlight community transit. They have a ZIP program. It is an amazing program that is a public rideshare option. So similar to Uber, where you're able to hail a rideshare, they have a program called ZIP that has a approximate route. And so there's all these different opportunities to provide transit when you create the appropriate densities of people and jobs and places where people want to be able to support all those options.
Yeah, that was another question about the job. What kind of jobs are you thinking you're going to bring to Linwood, those 20,000 or more jobs? Service or high tech, office people? What do you got? What's your crystal ball on that?
If I had a crystal ball, I would have the lottery numbers coming up. But one of the interesting matters with Linwood is that we are at the intersection of I-5 and 405. We are also a terminus station for light rail for quite a period of time. That allows us to leverage that location to continue and to essentially restart a trend that was very popular in the 80s and throughout the 90s of being a suburban office complex. Now, at the start of COVID, we saw companies like REI change their model from a new central campus to plan to be a hub and spoke methodology. That's going to be an anticipated change and continue to see is what is the office market going to continue to do? But that is going to be one of our anticipations. The other interesting thing with all of the job market continues to be the work from home policies. And that while we may not have a specific person with the job directly in Linwood, they are working physically in Linwood 4 days a week. And that in itself has a economic turn within their immediate community, going downstairs to the coffee shop, going immediately adjacent to the gym, walking to the restaurants. All of those pieces continue to also then support what we're hoping to achieve, and that's really a place. And that place has started to form. And I like to tell this story, if I may. When I started working at Linwood 5 years ago, and I would drive in on Alderwood Mall Boulevard, we started the project Connect at Linwood, which created a new set of homes for 231 units. When that project completed, my drive to Linwood now includes a school bus stopping in front of that site, and that's because we're creating neighborhoods within these locations. And that's such a cool spot to see. The other things we've started to see around the mall is a lot more dog walking at 6 a.m. in the morning, because these are places where people are starting to live. So these are some of the aspects that we're seeing throughout this. But as we come back to the jobs question, I have no crystal ball. Our focus is to continue to be an attractive place to centralize employment, and we're supportive of a lot of different employment types.
Okay, thank you. This was good to learn about Linwood, but there must be some connection to us as why you're here. Are we going to talk about the building codes and all that? Because we've been focusing on that lately, so.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I would just like to start out by saying there's a couple of ways that this relationship has grown and built stronger over time. As you may recall, in 2017, with the founding of the RFA, the Linwood Prevention Unit, Fire Prevention Unit, was transferred over to the RFA. And it has been there ever since under contract, interlocal agreement. And that has served well. And as times change, there may be a different way to right size what we do. And so with the changes that the authority has seen with the success of annexations and new cities coming in, we started dialogue with the RFA on fire prevention services. And we're still in that discussion. We still are looking at the best way to mutually benefit both organizations. And we think that that will be a benefit to the service for the community of Linwood. Now to go into codes and things, we work very closely with the RFA on codes. I commend the RFA on, I believe, being open to working with the city as we go from a suburban to a more urban model to go into a more urban style type of service. And I think this comes right into your wheelhouse on deployment and how do you serve your authority area. And so those conversations have been very productive and they continue. And we are currently in conversations regarding the interlocal agreement, regarding services, inspection, plan review and inspection, systems, those types of things. And how do those services get allocated out? And then, of course, how do they get funded? And we are anticipating that probably in, I always like to say summer, but probably in early fall, we'll be coming forward with agreements to both the policy boards regarding a new way of looking at service. And I think two things here. I think it keeps a high level of service for Linwood. And two, I think it provides consistency for the authority and dealing with the jurisdictions.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, I got a mixed feeling. I moved up from Green Lake over here in 1991. I was working in the Windermere building on Ottawa Mall. That was the tallest building, 2 floor. And now it just all around. I've been expressed my concern. 196 and 44 is always congestions, right? So you're adding all these units in there. Have you guys considered the traffic wise? Because, and then also people go to the station for, to take the light rail.
So one of the things that we did during the 2000s and throughout the 2010s and even to just last year and this year is continue to monitor our development impacts on traffic. But that also includes the reasons why we completed projects like the 196th Street widening, the mitigation from Sound Transit to widen the 200th Alderman Mall Boulevard and 44th. And not all of those improvements are turned on yet. That includes signalized improvements as well as trying to still continue to make sure that we can get traffic through the area. But at the same time, there's a lot of demand on that roadway. And if we met that demand for that 1 hour each and every day, it'd be approximately, I believe the number when we looked at it was 6 lanes in each direction. So there's this balance and a policy we have to be able to support, which is identifying what is the appropriate size facility to meet demand. And I don't like being delayed in traffic either, but at the same time, trying to identify how do we achieve these. One of the projects we're excited about is the Poplar Way Bridge that will continue to help disperse how you get past and around the 196 pinch points.
Well, I don't think, well, not only the traffic, but I think there were accidents. I assume there will be a lot of accidents that we will be
That's-
responsible.
The 196th corridor had a significant number of accidents with the two-way left turn lane, the center lane that was
Right.
used. So as much as the 196 included utility upgrades, underground power, the sidewalks, widening, it was also a safety project. That median controls those turning movements significantly and has significantly reduced, I say significantly too many times, but
And if I may add to that, the outboard lanes are business access lanes. So you can get out of a less congested street because it's an access, the outside lane.
Mhm.
And that has stopped a lot of the rear end collisions. Because with 2 lanes only and everybody trying to get through as quick as they can, there was a lot of conflict there. And so the wider street, wider sidewalks, the ability to go with multiple modes like bus, rapid bus, light rail. This is all part of what I referred to earlier as the planned action ordinance. That's a environmental term, which means you plan for the infrastructure for the development you anticipate. And that gets tweaked, every so often. But our goal is to stay on top of that infrastructure. You'll still see a lot of traffic, a lot of cars. It's volume, it's being able to get through, and then also respect other modes of transportation.
Okay, I think this other question is that it seems to me all the new building now is on lease only, right? Rental only. No, that doesn't solve the problem of affordable housing. People cannot buy a condo in the whole area. Is that right?
so when we look at housing affordability, we truly look at what is the cost to have a residence, not necessarily the cost of ownership versus cost of rentership, but we do look at those under separate considerations. One of the big changes that we have seen in the marketplace is developers are less willing to build condos.
Right.
There's been changes at the state level for liability laws related to condominiums. That has not been reflected into what is coming forward in the private development still. So we regulate apartments and condos very similarly as a land use. But as it comes to affordability, we're still looking at what is the level per month that it would take of your monthly income to have a place to live.
So the city don't have any planning for give condo people, entry level to buy any of them at all.
No, we do not have any programs for that. And the programs that we do have treat condominiums and apartments very similar in those regards.
That's my biggest complaint. Even my son complaining they cannot afford even own anything. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, there's been a lot of talk about traffic congestion. So I'm going to state the obvious, which we probably already knew, is our concern about that is response time. So besides my personal issues. So thanks.
If I may, on that, we are, well aware, everybody's gone Opticom, so, your rigs have, traffic signal, priority. They can control it from the apparatus and, quite effective. However, for all of you that have ever sat through that, the signals have to recycle, so you get to wait for the green light twice. But it's amazing that, I commend those folks because they know how to get through it, and they do it well. I would also like to point out on infrastructure, when we build Popular Way Bridge, your Briar Station will be able to come up Popular if there's any calls. So all of that stuff kind of factors in how we look at circulation and what's the best way to do things. And finally, the situation at Costco and Maple, that is an interim condition. It always knew it would be difficult, but our Public Works Department is coming up with options, which I believe they want to implement in the next year or so, which will help reduce that congestion.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the presentation. That's very informative and what is going on, particularly in the city center and a lot going on in Linwood. So that's great. We very much appreciate you coming in and talking with us a little bit about it.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate your inviting us as well.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good night. All right, that will take us then back to item 9, which is the 2025 budget development will be next up. And I think that's going to be Mr. Bothwell. Or is that Chief Maxwell? Mr. Bothwell? Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, good evening, commissioners. We have another budget presentation for you tonight. We've got 3 items for follow-up from the last meeting. We're going to respond to a question about ending fund balance from the last meeting, and there's also a proposal associated with that. We're bringing back the high priority budget enhancements that we brought forward last week, as well as the funding options conversation. We're hoping for a continuation of that conversation with you all. And then at the end, I've just got one slide on the 2025 budget package. So I will start with the fund balance analysis. So last week we got a question about the fund balance. And there's been a lot of movement in fund balance since we started this conversation, the budget conversation this year. And that's a lot of the updates that I brought you every week are the result, or the reason for that. So we reforecasted fund balance, and we're expecting to start 2025 with a fund balance of $41,400,000. And when I say fund balance, what I'm referring to is the value of cash and investments at the beginning and the end of the year. During 2025, we're expecting to draw down that fund balance for a couple reasons. The first is a $2.8 million drawdown for one-time items in the 2025 budget, or the current iteration of the 2025 budget. The biggest contributor to that is a $2.2 million for underfunded apparatus. The other contributor is $625,000 that's associated with the high priority budget enhancements that we talked about last week, and we'll talk about again this week. The other drawdown is $4.5 million, and that's for ongoing expenditures in 2025. That includes $700,000 for those high priority enhancements. But the biggest piece of that is the $3.8 million. That's the status quo deficit. So we're forecasting to end 2025 with a fund balance of just over $34 million. And that assumes that all divisions spend 100% of their budget. So this is sort of the worst case scenario. We calculated our target based on a current iteration of the budget, and the fund balance target is $28.5 million. And just as a reminder, the target is from our policies, and it's 90 days of operating expenditures. So we would have about $5.6 million in excess of target based on that worst case scenario at the end of 2025. If we take into consideration the historical average annual underspend of $3.75 million, we would end the year closer to $38 million, which is more than $9 million in excess of our fund balance target. So that presents an opportunity, and this is where the proposal comes in. So the proposal is to establish a revenue stabilization fund with general fund cash and investments in excess of target. And so what we would do is we'd create a separate fund that's just like the board contingency fund that's out there currently. And we would fund that with some of that excess fund balance. So the potential benefits of a revenue stabilization fund are that it smooths revenue cycles and mitigates revenue disruptions. It provides a soft landing for revenue losses. And we've got a couple of those that we're thinking are coming in the next couple of years. One is the change to the GEMT cost methodology. And then the other, of course, is the fire marshal services contract revenue that is, we're budgeting a loss in this current year, and it's sort of a question mark for future years. It could provide upfront funding for reimbursement grants, and the balance in this fund could also be included in the measurement of our general fund ending fund balance target. And the reason that's important is if we get closer to that $28.5 million target that we have, and we're threatening to fall below that, if we're able to measure whether or not we obtain the target by adding these funds in, then we would be in compliance with our own policy. Just a couple other notes about the proposal: a revenue stabilization fund. The board controls all aspects, including policy and use. So, and the board approval is required to establish the fund. So we would establish it in policy. We would make a recommendation as staff, of course, but the board would be in control of how the funds would be used, and then it would need to be budgeted through the board as well. And it is considered a board-imposed restriction by moving the money out of the general fund, and that can be released or modified by the board at any time, so it's very flexible. And in your packet materials, as part of the ending fund balance forecast, I plugged a number in there, and it was about $4.45 million, so I just rounded up here. For $4.5 million, if we were to fund a revenue stabilization fund, that would provide funding for 25% of GEMT for 1 year, which is the kind of the number we've thrown around about revenue losses for that. And it would also fund 1.5 years of estimated fire marshal contract revenue reduction. And that's sort of a to be determined item because we don't have those contracts finalized, but it would provide some relief there as well. So I'm going to pause for a minute before I go on to the high priority budget enhancements that we'll revisit from last week and see if there's any questions or reactions.
Questions? No? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so up next, you have the high priority budget enhancements. This is the same item that we brought to you last week. Chief was going to present this, but since he's remote, he thought it'd work better if we just did it in the room. So I've got the whole team up here, and we're happy to answer any questions or engage in any discussion with you on these topics. Chief asked me to go through and just do a very quick high-level overview of just reminder of what each one of these was or is. So I'll go ahead and start that. The first item's fire is from fire prevention. It's for the deputy fire marshal, transitional staffing, and upstaff. So there's two pieces to this. The first is that we've got some planned attrition coming. So we've got 2 folks that are moving on. And it's very technical work, and so we need to have some overlaps so the new folks can get up to speed and get the certifications in place. So there's 6 months of overlap staffing for that to occur. And then this item also has us upstaffing by 2 deputy fire marshals to deal with the current volume of work, and that's an ongoing expense. The second item is communications from the communications division. This is records management services. And so this is consulting services for $100,000 to take a look at how we manage our records and hopefully identify some efficiencies or a place where we could use technology to do a better job with records management and become more efficient and also be able to respond to public records requests more efficiently. The third item is from the safety division, and this is a captain assigned to health and wellness. This is an area we spend a lot of time talking about. It's very important that we keep our firefighters and our line staff healthy and give them the resources that they need to continue to come back to work and be healthy and happy. And so this would add resources to the current program, and that would be a captain. And that is an ongoing one. This IT security professional services, this is $60,000 of consulting or professional services money to supplement our current security program, to provide the capacity to get to the things that we aren't able to do consistently, and also to provide some technical depth by having this resource available. And then the final item is from finance and HR. This is the combined request for process and technology optimization. And I think in both of our work groups, and particularly where there's some overlap, we've identified a lot of inefficient processes and workarounds that we need to work through, and also some outdated use of technology. And so this money would fund us being able to get in there and do that work for process improvement, and also to possibly implement or re-implement or just modernize our use of technology. And so that's $150,000, and that's a one-time ask. So.
Commissioner Fernhoff, then Commissioner Chan.
Thank you, CFO Bothwell. Very, very comprehensive presentation as usual. We appreciate all the hard work. I just want to clarify this safety captain assigned to health and wellness. Is that a salary that we're looking at for $224,000?
It is, but it's a fully loaded, so it's total cost. So
Fully loaded person?
Correct.
And that's the personal salary, or is there other things that come with that budget?
this is the salary, benefits, all the costs associated with having another employee, and it's at the captain rank.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I need more convincing. Is that the record management service, you just studying, not actually changing the whole system?
The goal would be to study so that we can come up with a plan to change the system and make our workload more efficient. Because right now, what we have is we have one person who is managing our public records, and that
Right.
includes responding to all requests. And so we're really not doing a good job of records management. So what we'd like to do is bring in a consultant who could tell us where we need to go so that we can start getting there.
But last time I suggested this company already providing that kind of service, they can come and really tell you what they can do without that $100,000, a lot of money just to study. So I'm really encouraging you, look at a different company that already provide these kind of services.
I believe, were
Yeah.
you talking about the Attorney General's office? Was that what you were referring to?
Yeah, there's a lot of company really focused on serving government and that type of thing. They can tell you, you can do this, do that type of thing without any huge amount of studying. Because eventually, I mean, a lot of time you go through the consultant, but the consultant also could provide you, I think the actual solution is not how to do it, but they have already built-in files. And I mean, just take a look at that, call a couple of people and see what they can do to that. Then another process and technology optimization. It seemed to me just another study again. So I don't know. I mean, that might be a lot of companies do that. They can combine you, that type of thing. I see a lot of advertising on that. Yeah.
Commissioner Chan, I'd just like to add that part of the money related to records management may well be spent on actual labor. Given the huge increase we've had over the last few years in those public records requests and the fact that we have one person doing it, just scheduling around vacation and a maternity leave has been a bit challenging. And we want to make sure that we're not, falling behind or getting into a situation where we might have any sort of failure to follow through statutorily. So there's a potentiality that some of that money would be spent on person doing some work in addition to the person we have already hired. If it turns out we don't need it, we wouldn't spend all that money. So it would certainly be less than the dollar figure you're looking at in the request.
Yeah, a lot of companies already come to you with a program. Like, this is what we do. This is the public record. This is your file, and you hire. if you're using this system that much, instead of hiring another person, do the consulting, and then tell you to go to company ABC to do that. To me, I'm consulting myself many times. A lot of time to me, it's kind of you go between man, kind of the middleman doesn't really, help you to do it. I mean, I'm just saying that it seems to me lots of money to try to pick a provider. Eventually, I think the best way to solve this is find a provider that provide that particular service, and you can take a few to take a look at that. That's just my own, just individual, opinion that it seems a lot of money just to someone introduce you to another company. Yeah.
Commissioner Chan, I would offer that in the context of the finance and HR ask, a lot of this is going to be just resources it's not specific. The specific resource is going to be identified for the project that we have at hand. And a good example or a reasonable example that I have on this is we aren't using the budgeting module within our current ERP system. We aren't experts in that, so we might need to spend some money with the vendor, the software vendor, to have them help walk us through how we're going to use that. And that'll create efficiencies down the road. So it's sort of a one-time ask, but this is sort of, and I think that this might be true with the communications ask too, but it's certainly true with the finance and HR ask. There's a number of things that we're contemplating using this money for. And it's not just to have somebody, an efficiency consultant come in and take a look at our operations and tell us where to go. We have some pretty specific examples. And so we just need some funding to be able to pursue those.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments at this point? Okay. There's the third part of the presentation.
There is, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so this next part is funding options. So we came to you last week with this. The purpose is the same as last week, is to test your preferences for how to fund the ongoing deficit of approximately $3.8 million for the status quo or $4.5 million for the current iteration of the chief's preliminary budget. So we got a lot of really good information out of all you last week. And so we're back to kind of press our luck, I guess. So last week we brought you two scenarios to illustrate sort of some bookends. So now we're coming back. The scenario 1 is unchanged since last week. I'll run you through what that is. But scenario 2 is sort of moving more towards the middle. And this is a hybrid of the two scenarios that we presented last week. So just as a reminder, scenario 1 is our historical approach. It assumes historical tax and fee increases, so very low in the current environment, below inflation. And how we would implement this is to budget a deficit, consider the underspend, and then fund the actual deficit with fund balance. So in a way, this is sort of kicking the can down the road until we understand what's going on with our contracts and with the annexation. But we have the reserves to do this responsibly. And obviously this question is going to come back to us next year. So this is a great option for us, but we wanted to bring a second option, another second option, I should say. So scenario 2 is historical increases like I just described, plus the use of about $1.1 million of banked property tax capacity. And what's notable about this is that it funds all current year ongoing additions to the deficit and reduces the deficit in future years. So I mentioned when I talked about ending fund balance that the current iteration of the budget has us spending about $750,000 in 2025 on ongoing expenditures. And so this strategy or this scenario would fund all of those plus a little bit more. And that little bit more would amounts to about 10 or 15% of the ongoing deficit for the status quo. So it doesn't solve the problem, but it does make a contribution towards it. And the result is a modest increase in the tax burden on property owners. So it's about a $13 increase in the tax per year for an owner of a $750,000 assessed value property. So it's relatively modest. And it maintains the 2024, property tax levy rate. So AV went up a little bit more than the 1% that is sort of assumed in the status quo budget. And so we would basically be keeping our levy rate where we are and getting that extra 1.5% or around that by keeping the levy rate the same. So again, we brought this back just for discussion to see if you have any more feedback for us on that second option.
Comments, questions? Commissioner Wittes?
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate this scenario too. And the reason why I say that, it's a very modest increase. It is the same dollars per thousand as it was the year before. It does generate about $13 for every citizen out there that with a $750,000 house, but we're not going to get into a situation in a year from now or 2 years from now where we got to look at raising it $30 or $40. And those situations just bother people when you have to go up that high. So I do prefer scenario 2 myself. Thank you.
Yeah, I said last time too, I echo, whatever he does, I just follow him.
Other questions, comments for tonight? Board Liaison Kircher.
So just the, it seems like option 2 will save the most money over the longer period of time, or is that the wrong way to think about it? So like, because the budget will be, shortfall will be less going down, is that like a wiser investment in the long run versus the kick it down the road option? Or am I not thinking about it correctly at all?
No, I think you're onto something. I mean, I think that is a perspective. What we're doing is we're using a portion of our bank levy capacity for property tax. And so that capacity would continue on to the next year. So we could do that the following year. I think the advantage of this proposal, so financially it is sort of a 1 year. I mean, this is sort of a 1 year fix that does have a continuing effect. But the option doesn't go away in the second year. In terms of actually addressing or making some impact on our ongoing deficit, it is a positive. And so I guess from that perspective, we would save some fund balance. It would set us off on a better foot in 2026 and thereafter. So I don't know, is that?
I'm just trying to understand, but that was kind of what I was wondering.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of moving parts and I know I don't get them all, but I appreciate, and what you said makes sense.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, CFO Bothwell, which option do you prefer and why?
I think they're both really solid options. I would say that the second option, what I've heard from this board several times is that we don't want to have large increases in a single year.
I get the board influence. What's your choice? What do you think is the best choice and why?
I think option 2 or scenario 2 is probably the better choice. And because it deals with the ongoing deficit on sort of a small incremental basis. And I think it's kind of taxpayer friendly and, home budget friendly. And I think it just makes a lot of sense. It's a pretty practical option.
Yeah, I think last week we all kind of said option 2 or 2 like that. So we were kind of thinking that was the best one last week. You were for it. I'm for it then. All right. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Okay.
All right. Thank you all. One final slide here. This is our last meeting before we unveil the chief's preliminary budget in 2 weeks. And so I just wanted to give you a heads up about the budget package. So every year we adopt a number of resolutions. And so I'll remind you what those are. And then there's 2 that are sort of unique this year that could be in the budget package. And so Chief asked me to give you a heads up on one, and the second one I threw in there just to give you a heads up. So the first one, obviously, is we adopt a resolution to adopt the budget and the schedule of budgeted positions. We do that every year. We'll have 2 resolutions for property taxes, the EMS levy and the general fire levy. We'll have a resolution to adopt the benefit charge, and then we'll have a resolution to adopt the admin COLA or cost of living adjustment. We only have to do that for the admin folks because the folks that are represented have a contract, and so that specifies what their cost of living adjustment is. We have 2 that I put as recommended or optional resolutions that are going to be unique to next year. Chief wants to include in the package a resolution to implement the administrative salary survey as of January 1st, if it's not implemented with the budget. And so you may know, I think all of you know that there's a administrative salary survey that's currently underway. If the results of that aren't ready in time to include it with the budget, Chief wants to have that, and it goes into next year, and we're sort of deliberating about that. He wants to see that gets retroed back to January 1st. And that would need to be adopted before January 1st to be effective. So that's one that Chief asked me to put in. The second one is to establish a revenue stabilization fund. So like I said, if that's something that gets legs and you all want to do it, that would be a separate resolution too. And we would say, hey, we're setting up a new fund. This is what we're going to use it for. And any other kind of policy matters we would include in that resolution as well. So that's just a heads up. If that thing gets legs, that would be a separate resolution as well. So, and that's the end of the presentation for tonight. Happy to take any questions.
Questions or comments from commissioners?
Yeah,
Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, can I have a copy of that? You're always do good presentation. It would be great next time, print it out so I can follow it and make notes on it.
I apologize. I forgot this time.
I know. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you all.
Well, I see we're kind of at our break point here at 8:30. We have more items on the agenda. Why don't we take our about a 9-minute break or so until 8:40 or so, and then we'll come back and start up with the Fire Prevention Week resolution and then on to the EMS task force. So without objection, we'll be in a brief recess.
Any snacks anywhere?
Ready? Okay. All right, everybody, if you go ahead and please take your seats, and we will get back on the record and restart it again with our meeting. So we are back on the record and restarting our South County Fire Board meeting. Next up on the agenda is item number 10B, which is our Fire Prevention Week proclamation resolution.
Thank you, commissioners. October 6th through 12th is Fire Prevention Week, and this is always a chance for us to educate our community on how we can all stay safer and prevent fires from happening. And so we'll be doing some extra activities on social media and also kicking off our second grade education throughout the RFA. And then we'd like to invite you all to our Fire Prevention Week open house that's going to be Saturday, October 5th at Martha Lake Fire Station 21 from 11 until 1 p.m. And then we also ask that you adopt this resolution proclaiming October 6th through 12th as Fire Prevention Week.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions around, just generally questions or comments around the Fire Prevention Week resolution from the board members? If not, I move adoption of the resolution proclaiming October 6th through 12th, 2024 as National Fire Prevention Week, which is resolution 09172024-14. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Fernhoff. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the resolution for National Fire Prevention Week. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion?
Yes, I always believe in prevention is the best things to do. Actually, during today's meeting and with another city, we were telling them that there's a lot of prevention. I want the call never come. That's, I think, my goal. I think it's everybody's goal, right? A lot of time people say, wow, why are you wasting money, whatever. But if those are effective, that, the call never come. Not only us, the fire never start. Today, the apartment may, I don't know what the reason is, but it never start. That's the best result to me.
Any other discussion on the motion to adopt the resolution? Any other discussion on the motion? If not, we will move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, that moves us forward in the agenda then to item number 10C, which is Snohomish County EMS Task Force Restructuring Project Overview and Status. I'll turn that over to Chief Maxwell.
Thank you, Commissioner Kinney. I'm pulling up the presentation here. There we go. All right, thank you, board. This presentation is the culmination of almost a year's worth of work with representatives from around the county. The catalyst to this work is we have had a kind of a fragmented and unstable EMS or county EMS organization for many years now. The way it works in the state is you have the Department of Health, the state at the top, and then below that, there are regions of the state, and usually about 5 counties. We're in the northwest area and the 5 counties in the northwest. Statute allows for county EMS councils as well. If there is no county council, the region governs the EMS, and that is medical oversight, quality, education protocols. We are a large county, and we have had a county council at that level for years, but it has struggled to not have a stable organization, a stable home, and stable funding. So for the last year, we have had a task force working on putting that together. This presentation, we have a larger presentation, and I think you received it, or I'm happy to share this with you. I've edited down this presentation for brevity as much as possible because we don't have an hour and a half to spend on it. And so if there are any gaps or anything missing, there's no intention of holding anything back. I am trying to respect everybody's time. So with that, I will get started. So the mission of the task force was to make recommendations to the governance boards of the partner agencies, Snohomish County Fire Chiefs, Snohomish County EMS, and Snow 911 regarding the future governance and process flows to improve the countywide EMS and be consistent and, I guess, compliant with state laws. And each county also has a medical program director. There's a state medical program director, and then each county. Those county medical directors they're largely contracted with each state, contracts directly with county medical program directors, but there can be an ancillary contract with the county organization. So what we have worked on through that is figuring out a mission statement. We worked with Karen Reed, who also helped us form the fire authority, work plan, timelines. We looked at the current state. We developed a problem statement. What are the challenges and risks? And criteria for the programs that we needed to develop, activities that would be a priority to standardize and regionalize our EMS, who would host the agency, what one of the first budgets would look like, what a funding formula would look like, and what a governance board would look like. So the risk and challenges, in brief, everybody agreed it's understaffed, underfunded, and unsustainable with the amount of compliance and workload that needs to be accomplished by that agency. It just can't be done right now, just to even meet the most basic legal requirements. So recommended solution include all fire and EMS agencies. It would be led mainly by the government agencies, but we have options to bring in the private ambulances. Staffing and administrative support via contract with Snow 911, and an agency that we can hire its own executive director, have its own legal counsel, and an executive director that could also hire other staff to support the work of the executive director and the medical program director. I would like to note Matt Paxton. He is on here. He is the one, he has been sitting in with the last, I think, 3 or 4 meetings with us, and he is helping us draw up any legal documents, ILAs, et cetera, which I will get into a little bit later here, but he is here and he is representing South County Fire tonight.
So you said the contract, via contract with,
Oh, your mic.
it says you provide contract with Snow 911. But so is the agency under Snow 911 or completely separate?
So they would be the host, but they would be separate. And I'll show you the governance structure is coming up.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And there it is.
I've had a
Just let me get there, Commissioner Chan. So if you look at the top, I know this is a busy slide, but the top, the blue box at the top, that's simply all of our fire agencies in the county. Currently, we're at 18. And then they would have representatives. We would have 7 members, and I'll show you how that breaks down or how they're chosen onto this governing board. And that would be the governance board of this new agency, who would select an executive director that would run the agency. And below that, we would have members from all the agencies, and they would be the working group. They would help develop protocols and provide some expert guidance upward through the executive director and the governing board. Now it's hard to see my mouse there. It gets convoluted because we would have a contract. The new board would also have a contract with the medical program director. That medical program director also has a contract with the state, and they have independent authority through the state as well. And as I told you, we have the Department of Health, we have regions, and then we have county councils. Where this gets a little convoluted is we have a governing board that runs EMS in this county, but the way the statute's set up, and I think it's a little bit aged, there's also a county EMS council. And in order to fit within the structure and statutes of the state, we need to maintain that county EMS council. In fact, the state asked us to maintain that council. So that is that is elected people. The statute says who will be on that council, and they've become, they're an advisory council, as you can see with the arrows, to MPD, our new governing board, our executive director, and the TAC. I know that's confusing. We're trying to have a modern system and meet with some statutes that are a bit aged. This is how we came up with a way to distribute the board positions. As you can see, South County Fire, due to our size, we have 1 vote for South County Fire, and you can kind of see the other positions, the breakdowns. And then if you look at the bottom, a lot of it was, we did a breakdown based on population and AV. And we worked through it and did our best to divide the agencies evenly. One of the main things, so voting, the governance board, each board member would have 1 vote on important financial matters. There would be supermajority votes, and they would be weighted votes. Sorry, I can't see. So the weighted votes would be anything that would be over a 3% increase year to year, purchases over 50,000, accepting new members, restructuring the board, etc. A supermajority vote, the way it works, it would be approval by 60% in number of all 7 board members, and approval by the board members representing not less than 60% weight of all the members. And then not one single board member could not veto anything. So it would take at least 2, even with that, to stop something, I guess you could say. So the summary of recommendation would be along the terms of the board, the structure going forward, the structure of the TAC, which is similar to our fire TAC. A lot of things, not perfectly, but we tried to structure it as common structures like other TACs in the county. We also tried to structure a lot of it as like the Board of Commissioners. So we tried to find alignment there so there'd be similarities in the structure. We had to figure out formulas for charging other areas that covered tribal areas that they don't do assessed value in some of those areas. The threshold where the ILA would be activated, minimum participation term for a new agency, which I'll be talking about more, latecomers, people who leave or enter the consortium, serving on non-agencies, payment for agencies, and adjusting the structure. I kind of touched on a little bit while we have a governance board for Snohomish County EMS, we still have to have the state statute EMS Trauma Care Council, and that helps us fit into the the state model I explained, the DOH, the regions. And it's, like I said, it lets us fit into the structure of the world, but maybe technically we could survive without it. So we also had three mechanisms we recommended to control costs. The budget couldn't be increased or technically reduced by more than 3% without a supermajority. The budget requiring assessment exceeding 75th of 100, that's not easy to say, of 1 cent. 1,000 of AV would require approval of a supermajority of the member agencies, legislative bodies. If member agencies did exceed a budget over that, an individual agency could terminate their participation by giving formal notification prior to the budget being approved. So there is an out if we do have that high escalation. What if new agencies don't agree to sign the ILA? It would go into effect, obviously, the first of the year. It would need to have at least 90% of agencies representing the total AV of all the potential agencies, and at least one agency from each board position that I showed you earlier. There's a lot of discussions on the initial term of 5 years, and I'll talk about this later. There's concerns about the startup period and people being committed to a startup period. After the 5-year, agencies could give notice to leave on the first year or the first day of year 6. And then after that, it would be a year notice to terminate. These are some of the main goals. I'll try and be brief. Medical protocols, working with delegate physicians. I will talk about that a little bit more at the end. Training and evaluation, quality assurance, employee discipline. Those would be like that's also defined in state statute, and it's called a uniform disciplinary code if somebody is consistently not following protocols. Different issues like that. Controlled substances, managing electronic health records, and learning management system, which is our continuing education system. The current staffing right now is a 0.1 office coordinator, a half-time education coordinator, and half-time QA coordinator or certification coordinator, sorry. And then we have our executive director. And that's the current structure that's really not sustainable. Our original recommendation would be to move to a 4.5 FTE model. And that after discussion, especially with Chief Eastman, we looked at other models. How could we more slowly move into this system? And so a smaller group of the board was tasked with reducing the budget down for the first year. And this was the model we came up with. So we'd keep the 0.1 office coordinator, 1 full-time education coordinator, 1 full-time QA coordinator, and then of course the executive director. This you can just see, this would be in your packet, but this is just for example. We won't get into all the details, but you can see the breakdown of the different AVs, so you just kind of get an idea. I know that's kind of small. So we were basically setting up a funding formula that would be like an EMS levy. We don't think we'll ever have a countywide EMS levy because we have so many agencies. And so this would be basing it similar to that kind of model. This, you can see here the 3 options that we were putting forward. Option C is the current one we're putting forward, which puts the total new budget at just under $1 million and be 46 of 100th of 1 cent per thousand. This is way too small for anyone to look at, but it's in your packet if you want to look at the individual breakdown of every single thing in the budget. So currently with the current setup, probably the only one that we're concerned of, it would be, I highlighted it there in yellow, and that would be our initial assessment with the formula I just showed you at 347,427.53. So what happens if a new agency is not stood up? There are funds to carry it about 3 months into the new year, but then it would no longer exist. We would be kind of in a crisis situation there. So the legal documents that Matt Paxton has helped us develop, also these are in your packet, and kind of our task to do is, getting commitment from the legislative bodies to support creating a new agency, the rights and duties of the agencies, what a supermajority vote is, how payments will be conducted. We've worked through the bylaws and articles of incorporation over the last month or so, and the 2025 budget and its adjustments and all the policies related to it. For a new agency created, there'd have to be action by all agencies representing at least 90% of the AV of all the agencies. And then we'd also have to have an amendment to the Snow 911 ILA to be approved by all agencies to enable Snow 911 to be the host of the new agency. The implementation calendar is obviously we would to get the ILA and the SLA, which so interlocal agreement, the lease agreement or the hosting agreement with Snow 911, and then action by all of the agencies to adopt it by the end of the year. I guess that's it. So that. So I'm going to stop sharing. So there's no question we need an organized and coordinated approach to Snohomish County EMS. How to do it, there's been a lot of discussion and debate on. I representing South County Fire and representing, the chief, the balance of it is we want to, we know it's important to support a countywide system. The balance, and we want to be a collaborative partner. The challenge is when you're an agency of our size, we have a lot of our own infrastructure. And a lot of our own expertise. So the balance comes in to, what we contribute financially and what we bring to bear ourselves. And so I think we've come to a place working through the budget that I think we're at a reasonable launching place, with the budget to move forward. I think the funding model, we've come up with a good funding model, and we've come up with a good governance model. The representing South County Fire, I think that the two things that just, I don't know that they're deal breakers, but I guess their concerns would be 5 years in this day and age seems like a long time to commit. And then there's talks about consolidating the medical directors, and there's a county medical director and then deputy medical directors, and I'm very comfortable with our medical director, and I'm not at this point, I'm not willing to pool all of our medical directors together. We have a very good medical director, and I like the way our system works. So with that, I guess I would turn it over to Chief Eastman if you have any comments or questions from the board.
Yeah. Chair, I can see Sean. I can't see you. Is it appropriate for me to speak?
Yeah, Chief Eastman, let's have you finish out the discussion and then we'll go to questions from the board.
Well, I guess I'll say that where this sits today, and based on Sean's presentation and I haven't actually looked at the details of the budget that he brought forward. But I think it's important, the funding model, I actually do support. We will never be able to mimic a county EMS system like King County, Whatcom County, and some of those that have a countywide EMS levy, because each individual agency controls, their own EMS levy. But this gets us as close as we can to a funding model and base it on AV, as if we were a countywide entity. And we've had a lot of growth in Southwest County. Our AV is high compared to a lot of our partners around the county. But I do support that funding model moving forward now and into the future. I think it's a positive step. The other thing that I think is probably the most important is the way they set up governance. Having, fire chiefs being part of that governance board. I believe there's a representative from the commissioners on that group, on that board. Will be the first time since I've been in the county where you have fire chiefs sitting in for the sole purpose of looking at countywide EMS and what should we do and what shouldn't we do. And I think that's a huge positive for Snohomish County. I think it's a positive for the Regional Fire Authority too. And where the budget's at, though, it's more than what we normally pay or what we historically have paid. I think if you look at paying the employees of SCEMS appropriately, they've been underpaid. And then the cost associated with housing them at Snow 911, the increases are, from my perspective, are a reasonable increase. For us to, at least from those perspectives, to move forward. And I'm comfortable with that from my seat. And I do have some of the same, some of the detail work that Chief Maxwell showed his concern to you guys or talked to you guys about. I have those same things with Sean. We kind of look at this the same way. I'll be honest, because I've been home and a little bit under the weather. I haven't actually read through the complete interlocal agreement with that was in the packet. And I guess that's the agreement that the board would need to consider and affirming and approving if we were to move forward. And Sean talked about the 5-year timeline and what the outs are. I don't know a lot of the other detail in it. I apologize. And the piece that I think is also important that I don't know where that's at, and Sean, maybe you can speak to it when I'm done, is the agreement between the new entity and Snow 911 and what that would look like. I think that's another piece. And I'm not sure exactly what those parameters are. And that's the one thing that's been one of the challenges I've had with this is I take a lot of pride in making sure that staff gives the board, all the information that we have available so you can make an informed decision. In this case, there's a couple pieces, specifically the SLA, I don't have. And I think historically we would bring that before the board before you made your final decisions and deliberations as you move forward on considering the interlocal agreement to move this new entity forward. So I think where I'm at right now is where the budget's at, the funding model, where the governance is at. I think it's a great step forward. And I think it sets the stage for where we need to move in the future. And I think it's got some portability to it too in the long run. If we need to make some changes with where it's housed, we can do that. If it needs to stay where at 911, that's fine. But it gives us the ability to evolve as things change into the future also. So I guess with that, I'll pause, and Sean, if you could kind of fill in where I have holes.
Yeah, we have not received the service lease agreement. And so I do, Matt, I don't know if you have information. I know you've been a part of that or any updates where that's at, but we did not have that by the time of this meeting. So.
Yeah, the lead agency agreement has been, a draft of it has been prepared, but not reviewed by Snow 911 yet. So we understand the basic parameters. Snow 911 would be leasing office space, and be joint employers of this new agency's employees. So Snow 911 would handle all the payroll, the HR side of things, but this employee would be able to be hired, or all the employees could be hired and fired by this new agency as it relates to their work for that agency. So there would be control over the personnel by the new agency, but facilitated by Snow 911. It's the reimbursement that still needs to be negotiated. There would be a reconciliation of the total cost of compensation for the employees, as well as the costs for administering the service level agreement that still need to be negotiated.
Thank you.
Ready for questions?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, let's go. Commissioner Lawrence, then Commissioner Fernhoff. Questions? I know you're gonna come up with it. So Commissioner Lawrence first.
Okay. Even if this was a polished, finally worked out agreement and you guys were like, yay, let's go for it, then you just sprung this on us. We got to vote on this by when? And so to me, it's DOA just because of that. But then I hear there's reservations about aspects of this program. So certain amount of what we are putting into it. And so what happens if we decide we don't want to, the board decides it's not for this at this time? How it dies, it can't continue on for another year while we digest what you're asking us to do?
Well, we would definitely have to regroup as a task force. And we'd have to see what the alternate plans would be.
But it could still exist and fine tune things and answer questions over a period of a year. So next year this time next year, we have enough information and knowledge about. I conferred with former employee of the RFA and board member of the RFA and trying to get up to speed on this. And just a couple of weeks isn't enough time, I don't think, for anybody to make I was at the Snow Isle Board Commissioners meeting, and it's still very complex and new to me. So you can exist.
I
Task
think,
force can go on for another year without us.
well, I think it would very much struggle in its current form with its current level of staffing.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Fernhoff, yes, and then Commissioner Wittes.
So I guess what I'm trying to grasp here is the why. We have a dysfunctional organization that has existed for some time. We lack care and feeding. We're understaffed. And you now have found a home with Snow 911, if I understand, to up your scale to 4.1 or so as far as 3.1. And Snow 911, I'm assuming at their new facility and not having to lease new space, is going to be able to house and provide the adequate administrative spaces for them at their new facility going forward. Is that right? Is that an assumption?
Yeah,
We don't know.
yeah, I mean, that's an assumption.
Okay.
but yes.
Because what I'm just concerned about, and I think Chief Eastman handled this pretty eloquently, and that is comparatives to our other counties. And if I understand the situation correctly, unlike King County, which has a county-wide EMS, taxation. We have a potpourri of across the land, right? Everybody does their own thing. So I guess that would be one of the questions I have. If somebody's going out for their EMS levy, for example, and this organization exists in the form that you would like to see it, and it fails, how does that tip the cart in one way or another? In other words, if that were 2 or 3 of the participants, or 4 of the participants, or 10 of the participants. Now, we've seen this with the city of Everett. We've seen it with the city of Mukilteo. So I'm concerned that we might be, not that this is a bad idea. I think it might be out of necessity at the end of the day that we do something like this. But how does that start to affect the initiative for this particular endeavor?
Yeah, I mean, and I realize you understand that. I mean, it's not coupled to their EMS levy, and that's where, we had lots of discussions on, having that 1 year out and the critical need for an agency. If we see the economy changing or a failure in a levy, they need to notify the Snohomish County EMS agency before the budget is finalized, in anticipation of that.
I can see why you're going to need more staff. This is a complicated moving target if it's not something that's static across the board. So EMS levy fails, that doesn't affect the price of tea in China on this one, right? Because you're an independent, your taxation base is separate.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. I think that, at least in my mind, I needed to get that out to figure out that this is this and this is that. Yeah, right now, this is a very muddy presentation in terms of arrows pointing this way and that way, and budget sheets that are really tiny. So from your perspective, Chief, if you had a magic wand today, how would you advise the board?
Well, I think everyone knows I'm always very cautious and conservative and incremental. We have worked really hard for the last year to try and come to something to sustain this organization. And kind of the 3 arms, the funding model, we're okay with. The governance model, we're okay with. The budget, we have slimmed down as much as we can. I would see at least stabilizing, I think we're at a place where we could move forward with this with a shorter term, like maybe it's, so that we are not stuck into something. That's what I would advise the board.
Is that almost as this saying that you need a pilot period? Something that everybody can kind of seek equilibrium, figure out if everything is working correctly versus, a 5-year deal or some like those gyms you go to and you get a lifetime membership and you're kind of stuck.
Yeah. Well, and with whether it be the fire marshals or the fire consortium that Chief Isotelo is working on, they're 2-year agreements with 1 year out. And I also like consistency in our modeling. It helps us all remember what we're doing. So that could be a model we could model.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Wittes.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenny. Just up front, I'm a fan of doing something with having a council. I'm just a little concerned the way it has come about and how it's happened. And over the years, we've had a county EMS council and it's failed us several times. Our agency, correct me if I'm wrong, handles everything internally now anyway. We've went out and got our own doc. We've done our programs, got it approved by the state. So we've kind of went around that system, correct?
Oh, we're fairly self-sufficient.
Okay, but I still think we need the third party that's not us reviewing things, keeping an eye on things, making sure everything's good. The concerns I have from the past is when the EMS council tries to set policy for our elected officials. I guess I can say us now, but I didn't like that at all because it's our board that governs. As far as the plan goes, I like the funding mechanism. I think it's appropriate that we do help out our neighbors. We are the biggest agency. Concern I have with that is it takes everybody to be a part of it. And there's 18 agencies. There's 6 of them that are big and 12 of them that are small. And it's probably harder for those 12 to come up with those funds than it is for the 6. I just look at something, is it better that the 6 of us take care of this system? Is there any way we can do that? And I've talked to Commissioner Waugh about it after he threw stuff at me. But I just look at, is it something we should take on, like the training consortium, keep it a third party, don't get me wrong, keep it a third entity. But basically take it that direction and do something, or look down the road to do that in a couple years if we have the a couple year out in the contract. But for us, it's a significant amount of money. I haven't seen the new budget, but I know it was originally looking about, what, 300,000 more per year than we pay today in that area. And that's a pretty big chunk that I look at when we're kind of taking care of it ourselves. Surfer's going to go up significantly too. It's about the same amount of money or close to proportionally. Yeah. So,
actually, because of the higher assessed values.
right. So they're in the same boat we're in, that, hey, it's a lot of money. They do their stuff on their own too. You know, they've kind of had to do it the same way we have. I think they basically agree, help the people out, do the different things. I'm just concerned about the term. I'm concerned about, are we making a third entity again? Going to Snow 911. I know, looking at the budget originally, that was a lot of money that was being paid to Snow 911 for housing. And we're not getting a discount over here when we pay our 911 funds. I don't know where that money's going. It's some concerns I have when I look at that. I believe it was about 150,000 a year. And we're already paying into the system anyway. We're paying for HR, we're paying for payroll. And I understand that it could be a little bit more, but we're only talking a few employees. I know our agency took it upon ourselves, I don't know how many years that was, to bring in the employees to do the same thing. It didn't work out well. But we've tried to do it in the past, so it's not like we've shunned away from doing it. But those are just the things I look at. And I know it's 11th hour trying to get it done, but I don't know if it can get done in a month's time. I know some commissioners, when they just see it now, they don't understand it, and it's going to take a little bit to get through it.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. It's the 11th hour. We have been, I guess that's on us. We have been working tirelessly to try and bring a package, and I realize it's a deluge of information on everybody right here at this 11th hour.
I know the 11th hour, I'm saying I'm coming into it. I know what you're doing, but I think you guys worked your butts off, really, but you've only had a year to do it.
Yeah.
You haven't had much time. I think you've gone significantly from nothing to where you are today. So don't take that wrong, that I think that you guys haven't done your job. I think you're trying to do it in a condensed period of time too. So I look at it that way. Those are some of the thoughts and comments I have on it.
Other Commissioner Roland.
So who's the current executive director?
The interim director is Scott Dorsey.
Scott Dorsey, I just want to make a note of that. And I guess I would have expected that, I guess, head of that organization or the driving force to be here tonight to help answer some questions. But I guess for you, this organization, I think back to the League of Nations, United Nations type example of an organization that didn't have enforcement capabilities, that didn't really have a way to do anything except for get people in the room to talk. And this is a lot of money just to talk. It doesn't seem like there's still any enforcement. They're not going to be telling us what our policies have to be. What really is the vision here that goes from an organization that has not been successful to an organization that has been successful? Well, all I see is what appears to be, we need more staff, and that's what's been holding us back. Can you comment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely part of it. I think there has been a lack of engagement and interest by the county fire chiefs. And that's no secret. That was recognized at the county fire chiefs meeting. And this governance board actually requires the number one, or potentially, not ideally, the number two chief to be on this new governance. So we're building in, we're like a forced function of engagement from the county fire chiefs to have engagement in county EMS, because as we know, it's 80 to 90% of what we do. So we're trying to recraft this to not make the mistakes of the past. And the staffing, bringing up the staffing is it's to create that aggregate, like quality assurance, the data, the protocols, the education, and doing that from an organized county-wide way so that we are all doing it the same way, because we all know our boundaries are pretty soft in responding to each other's calls. And so it's to bring up, it's to have a better future and to have staffing that can properly do the job to take us into the future.
But I guess my question is how? What is that vision? I mean, it's great that the vision is have a better organization, a better future, but I don't see how this is going to do that. You mentioned how important this is, and I agree, 80–90% of what we do is EMS. If it's that much of our job, and if it's that important, why do you think in the past there hasn't been interest from the chiefs and the other organizations in actually engaging in this and making it successful? Because at the end of the day, without enforcement, we've got a toothless a guard dog that is not going to be able to do much, again, except for get people in the room. And if the people aren't in the room to actually move in the same direction already, what are we doing this for?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and maybe I'm not following exactly what you're saying. I think we are recognizing the mistakes of our past, and we are trying to re-envision the organization to do a better job in the future. And I think, when I go over education, quality, protocols, infection control, controlled substances, that is the scaffolding. And over the next year, we're gonna build out that house, but we know what needs to be built out, and to create a more solid future where we do have.
Can you give me an example of something that currently isn't standardized that this would move the needle on? If we threw all the money that was necessary at this, we got the right people in place, what is something that you can see that right now is not being handled that this would be able to accomplish?
Well, so there's different layers or different levels of a quality assurance incident. And, you can hire low level, mid level, and then upper level. I think we're challenged to have an organized approach to go through the data and go, okay, we have these issues across the county. We're not handling strokes well. I'm not saying we are. And how are we doing that across the county? Go, okay, we need to do a better job on stroke care in this county. And you can take that and do quality improvement. And then now you can adjust the educational program to match whatever deficits we are, and do that as a countywide agency, rather than pockets of 18 different agencies that have no way to benchmark against each other, or even have, the smaller agencies have little or no way to even tell that they're doing it right consistently.
One of the other questions that I had, and I think this is just the parliamentarian side of me in it, is there's some kind of oddities in around the way that the board is structured, the way that the vote totals and thresholds are kind of structured in such a way that I got pieces of it, and I still would have to digest it a little bit further on the kind of the Robert's rules nerd side, the bylaws and all of that. But it seems that a lot of these big decisions require 60% or 66% of the board. So we're talking about a 2/3 majority of a board of 7, which is 5, or 60% of assessed value as totaled out. We're already 36 with the annexation of Edmonds. If that comes to pass, I'm guessing we'll be around 40% right there. That almost gives us, and I did notice the little caveat of no one organization can veto. So you'd have to have 6 other, together to pass it. At that point, it just gets into a really weird type place where the outside threshold or the outsized threshold that we have requires us to basically get one other board seat, which could be the 7th. Oh, it would have to be one of the board seats, but not the 7th seat that's a commissioner. So it'd have to be one of the other organizations to decide with us, and then there's nothing that the board could do to stop it. It's a two votes shut anything down at that point. Or conversely, if we want to go ahead with something, we need 3 votes out of the 7 to go ahead with anything. It seems like a recipe for those smaller organizations that are then lumped together and only have one vote, but then that vote isn't as powerful in some circumstances as others for them to, I mean, it just takes away more and more their ownership of the success of the organization, their responsibility, their voice. I don't know. I don't know how, seeing it in the form that it currently is, how it could be successful without with all of these things that are holding it back right now. And I don't think the additional staff is the answer for the structural, I guess, philosophical, different interests to come to the table together to accomplish anything. Because at the end of the day, that group could decide, for Narcan, it's 2 doses at a certain duration, and that's our standard policy, but there's no enforcement. If another agency says, no, we like our way of doing it, they're going to do it. So did we get anywhere that we wouldn't have from just sharing success stories between organizations? I don't know. I'm rambling, I think, at this point, because this is, as our other commissioners have brought out, a lot of information to try to suss together. And as I said, I think the thing that's missing for me is that vision of how this is going to make it successful, more than just the staffing side. The vision, the philosophy, the how is it going to work? I know we're putting you on the hot seat as much as you put us kind of with this in the limited amount of time. So I do appreciate the answers that you've given. I guess some food for thought. If there's anything you want to respond to in that diatribe, you're welcome to.
I would say for just being presented the governance model, you described it quite well. And those, like I said, I think we started back in December. Those were months of deliberations of representatives from all over the county trying to come up with the most fair, logical, but sometimes simply pragmatic way to create fairness and equality across the system. To all those points you speak of, we did the best we could to make logical divisions, but in some point there's no perfect way to line everything out.
Sure, it becomes a formula that once one side starts getting unbalanced,
exactly,
everything's fighting against itself to be able to make that recipe work.
Exactly. So we came to the most logical conclusion of fairness that we could.
Yeah.
We've got more questions. Liaison Swisher, Commissioner Lawrence, and Commissioner Fernhoff. Liaison Swisher.
Well, I see the need, first of all. The question I have, and it's because someone from out of King County previously asked me at one point in time. So the purpose of this would be in a situation, and this was their example, they are used to someone with mental health issues and maybe in a drug overdose situation is picked up by the police officers, but they need to be transported to a hospital. They were used to, in King County, the protocol is that person is strapped down. Their hands are strapped down the minute that they're put on a gurney to be put into an aid cart. And what he experienced here was that didn't happen. And then you have an aid car start down the road. Excuse me. I don't know why there's an alarm set on my phone right now, but so you have the person not get fully strapped down, and then they become combative in the aid car and create more havoc, and it has to pull over to the side, and then they're calling 911 to get police officers again because now you've got a combative patient in the back. So would a system like this help teach everybody across the board? Best practice is we don't leave the person who's already out of their mind free to cause more damage to the people who are trying to aid them in the aid car. Is that kind of what some of this system is about?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, those are, those are going to be dictated by protocols and then
Right.
county operating procedures
Okay.
that are set out by the MPD and this board to get consistent care across the county and disseminate how you are supposed to do that consistent care.
Okay. Okay. Because that makes total sense to me, because when his comparison of what he's experienced in Snohomish County versus King County, I was like, that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you just do that? And so then for the voting, because I kind of was looking at it like Micah was too. But so if I understand correctly, you guys have negotiated amongst the 18 entities and come up with the voting structure that you have now. Knowing that, because, not to say that a small entity like where I live isn't just as important as South County Fire, but the reality is they serve a much smaller population of people, as do a bunch of those other agencies. So we're combining those agencies together for them to collectively choose one representative out of their group. And their group is essentially equivalent to the one South County Fire vote, correct? So we are leaving it in all of those people's hands to determine who they think their best representative is, just like people have voted for the fellows up here to decide, who's the best representative in their area to make those decisions for them and to try and make it fairly. Because one vote up there isn't weighted any heavier than another. And so that's what you guys have tried to do with population wise and assessed value wise in your voting model, right?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I see the need for this, because based on everything you've shared, it's a mess. But you guys have done a really fabulous job, and I hope that you can answer the questions for everybody else to get us to a point where you can put this into practice, because I think that would be a valuable tool to the rest, to everybody within the county.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence.
I understand possibly why you have the 5-year element there in the proposal, because you wouldn't be able to hire a director, or you wouldn't be able to get the critical mass for something to sustain. I understand that. Is part of the problem the state law to begin with, the state mandate, which was created how many decades ago for this?
Which state mandate?
That you have to have this EMS
The only thing that's
countywide.
it's allowed in statute to have a county council, but it's not required.
It's not required.
The regions are the required, but
What do you mean region?
The 5-county region. So you have the state at the top, the 5-county region, and then statute allows for a county council, and the more populated counties have a county council. But if you get out into the rural areas of Eastern Washington, the region governs all the counties as one.
Okay, so it gets back that there may be some real good reasons why the county, or in general, we need this. But there's really for $300,000, $400,000, no actual benefit for our taxpayers, probably for many, many years ahead. And that's the whole problem. All of the board members have spoken that have said really good things. I think I agree with everybody that has spoken, made sense to me without knowing truly what there is to know. So we'll get down to it. We're committing to spending a lot of money for something that really none of our residents, there's no tangible benefit from it. Even though it might be a good idea, but when, 50 years from now, when it would it actually make sense for the people paying for it? That's the whole thing. It's like, well, maybe you could, everybody that's involved in it could explain to us, but not in a couple of weeks. I mean, really, I really believe that for this board here, I think the sense is it's DOA. And so the council needs to go and how do we need to go back to the drawing board or something. Just because it may be a great idea. It's too quick, too much to absorb.
Commissioner
Vote on it.
Fernhoff.
I've heard a lot of discussion in here from, we have created our own system. We have autonomy. I've heard an example of based on stroke, right? And if I understood your reason for bringing up the example is that currently South County Fire might be doing some things that other agencies are not medically. Example, whole blood. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, we are the only ones who do whole blood.
So if we, and I think Chief Eastman has characterized us as a metro-sized department, are to play a lead role going forward, our voice is very important. And if it means at the end of the day, when we form, it's like an imperfect union, right? We're going to attempt it and we're going to modify it over time, that maybe all areas within the county now get whole blood. All areas get a standard of care that currently, and I think Commissioner Lawrence has stated so wisely, that we pay for here within South County, but we understand that that good could be spread elsewhere. And the mechanics of it, whether or not somebody is doing the care and feeding and we got 4.2 FTE, that's all minutia, right? Really, at the end state is, why are we doing this? And it's really to build a standard of care that will cover the land, that no matter where you go, that you're going to benefit by this affiliation. Is that the intent of of the organization?
Yeah, I mean, definitely to have a system approach. I mean, it's always better to have a system approach.
Thank you.
So I wanted to chime in and ask a little bit about potentially another option, and that is in the past, SCEMS has been housed at South County Fire. Commissioner Wittes mentioned that a moment ago. We had some, and we were like the financial agent for it and provided HR, and I know there were some HR problems. And then my recollection is we didn't want SCEMS to be here anymore, and my recollection is North County took SCEMS. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but and so there was a component of essentially subsidization. As we see from the current budget, there's not a lot of money there. And the host we were subsidizing it to some degree. What I see now in the budget is that it's going to be an independent agency, which I think is actually a good thing. I think it should be the fire service together handling this issue. I don't want the Snohomish County itself to come in and handle it. I think we want to handle it ourselves. I'm not really excited about Snow 911 being like the host entity, but I'm okay with it because they provide a foundation. They have HR, they have IT, they have offices. So they provide that structure. But I also see that they seem to be getting a market rate or a going rate for these things. As Commissioner Wittes mentioned, or seemed to reference vaguely, there's no subsidization going on there from Snow 911. And so I'm wondering, does it, we do a huge amount of EMS. We've talked about our EMS autonomy. I'm wondering, do we want to take this over and house it and be the entity that is the host, so to speak? Because we do an awful lot of EMS, and maybe other people in the county wouldn't like that because we're the biggest entity and they don't want the biggest dog on the block so involved in it. And so it needs to be a third party. But if we're talking about, essentially paying the going rate, do we want to get back in the game and be the host agency and support it out of the fire world, as opposed to Snow 911 having it in its clutches, so to speak? So I do wonder about that. If we're talking about this amount of money, and I know you've pared down the budget, but I also know where the budget came from very recently. And so my guess is the pressure's going to be on to expand that year after year, and it's going to grow one way or another. And so if it's going to grow, do we want to have essentially more have it be in our clutches as opposed to Snow 911's clutches? So that gets us back where we were before, but sometimes what comes around comes back around in a good way and not always in a bad way. So I just wanted to throw that out there as another thought about how to handle this, and because we haven't mentioned that so far.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was, I think that that's an option. I mean, I think we do run a pretty tight ship and we do a good job. And so I think for all the points you state, we'd have to consider it.
Commissioner Wittes, I know you put your hand up.
Just real quick on that, I just wanted to say that you guys did reach out. I've heard to every agency to do it. Snow 911 was the only one that kind of did that to begin with. So
correct.
They did do that effort. I know it's getting late, so I'll say it later.
Commissioner Rowland.
So if I'm really understanding it, kind of peeling away the layers, this is about the larger organizations that have more developed policies, procedures, more, I guess, money to do things a different way or a right way or whatever, to try to get that disseminated out to some of the smaller agencies that haven't been able to invest in these ideas or techniques or technologies or protocols or whatever. It doesn't seem like it's really the other way around for us to start adopting the practice and procedures of small rural districts here, whether that be, fully volunteer firefighter service or, longer acceptable durations for, before we get there, levels of service. It seems kind of an organization that helps us kind of push best practices and policies out, where the goal really is proselytizing, for lack of a better term, and promulgating these procedures and practices so they're more standardized across, and so that better treatment gets to people that need it. I think if that's kind of the goal here, it seems that adding another layer that is diffused out over 18 agencies that things have to bubble up through and then things optionally bubble back down doesn't seem very efficient at the end of the day. Taking something kind of from other industries, one thing I don't know if I've seen in the fire service, and I'm sure there are events like this, but conferences, opportunities for 1 day or 2 days, bunch of different businesses that all do the same thing, such as the fire service, get together and they have speakers from each agency that are talking about how they're doing things different and better than others. This happens in technology all the time in my field, and I know many other fields, where you go to these conferences to learn these things, you decide whether they're going to work in your organization, you bring them back to your organization, you start to adopt them. Having something structured like that, if it doesn't already exist across the county, might be a good, I don't want to say alternative idea, but a good idea, period. Besides, another agency, is having some sort of structure for the sharing of ideas, for the networking of these different agencies beyond the chief levels, getting together and deciding, okay, I like this technique that this one's going to use, and I'm going to bring it back to mine and push it down through the ranks. But I don't know how well that would work, but it does seem like one of the avenues to accomplish the goal that you're trying to do, which is to get better procedures out there and get them more standard. Like I said, I don't think as of yet I understand this well enough to be convinced that this can do that underneath its current form. But I just wanted to throw that out there as a way that other industries kind of try to tackle the same issues that you seem to be trying to tackle here.
Yeah, thank you. And that is this agency it's proposed to be a vehicle for what you're saying, and it does a little bit of that right now, but to expand on that. So yes, thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence.
The one member can't veto. Nah, can't agree to that one. We need to be able to veto it. We're putting in the most money. We get the least return on investment for our taxpayers. It's just what we don't get. No, we should have that veto power if this organization ever does get going in the way along the lines of what's been proposed. So, yeah, that has to be re-looked at down the road for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've had about 45 minutes of discussion. I need to come back to Chief Eastman to find out, do you have adequate direction from the discussion of the board, or where do we stand, Chief Eastman? Because I understand you need to make a decision regarding this in the next week, I believe, or 2 weeks.
I believe we have
Before
a
our next
meeting.
meeting.
I think we have a meeting on the 23rd. So I think I have enough to go have a conversation at the Chiefs meeting on this topic from the discussion we had today. I truly do appreciate the conversation, the dialogue. It was extremely helpful for me. I guess I would expect if Commissioner Kenny concurs that agenda planning, that we'll have a quick update on this topic at the first meeting in October as a result of my meeting on the 23rd. So I think I'm good with where things are at. And I can frame my conversation at the Chiefs Council in a way where hopefully we'll be able to keep the conversation moving forward and be able to bring back some additional information so we can have some additional conversations on it from with the board and get to a place I think that everybody will be happy with. So thank you for that, Commissioner Kennedy. I think I'm good.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chief. Our very last items as we're reaching our 10 o'clock witching hour here, committee updates. Are there any really important committee updates from any of the committee chairs? If so, speak now. There's always the next meeting for committee updates. Commissioner comments, any desperate commissioner comments that need to be made? I guess we got one.
Sorry.
Commissioner Wittes.
It'll be quick.
Okay, good.
I just had the privilege the other day of watching something. I just want to share it with the board. Our fire chief's son is in his last year at the Air Force Academy. Did well enough. They did a job assignment and he got selected to go to pilot training. So I just want to share that.
Oh, very nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? If not, very good. We are at the end of the meeting. We are ready to adjourn. Our next meeting is the first Tuesday of October. And without objection, then we are adjourned. Thank you.